Nwagbara Good News is an author and educational sociologist. He's the author of the novel, The Chronicles of the Tipsies, and another book targeted at dealing with prejudice, which is titled On the Road to Kigali. And that's the book we'll be talking about this morning. You can see the book in my hand here. That's Nwagbara Good News, On the Road to Kigali. Wow. Now, this book, I looked at it, I read it. It's what you might call, what one of the your reviewers called a seminal work. You know, something that a lot of research went into it, a lot of thought process, thinking about prejudice as a topic. But let's talk about Kigali as a metaphor, you know, because you sort of wrapped everything about prejudice around that, the Kigali metaphor. Why did you choose Kigali?
Well, Kigali, as a metaphor, takes us back to 1994 in Rwanda, when the Hutus and the Tutsis, due to ethnic mistrust and disunity, had a very big problem that led to the worst genocide of recorded history. Now, looking at the problem between the Hutu and the Tutsis, who were supposed to be brothers, we can see similar things happening in our lives today. I don't like you because you're dark. I don't like you because you're from this tribe, maybe this race. So for me, Kigali is a recipe of doom. And since the Hutus and the Tutsis became embroiled as a result of prejudice, I am warning people who are still practicing such prejudicial actions to refrain from such road. That's to turn back on the road to Kigali, so as not to meet the doom similar to what happened.
What happened in Kigali. That's actually very deep, and it's also very instructive that this book was actually written 2 years ago when the book was published. We weren't even having the kind of issues that we're having as a nation now, you know, with the increased herdsmen clashes and the intolerance that's going on in the nation right now. So it's also quite significant that we're having this kind of book available at this time for people to actually look at. And also to be instructed. But you know, when I look at Africa, you know, as a continent, and you know, a lot of things that have happened, not just in Rwanda, you know, what happened in Nigeria in 1967, what happened in Darfur, in Sudan, you know, and a couple of other countries, South Africa, all over the place. It seems like there's a history of intolerance based on deep probably deep religious or, you know, cultural backgrounds. And you explain some of that in this book. Yeah,
I did. Under cultural prejudice, I took Rwanda and the activities of the Janjaweed in Sudan, Darfur region. I also took us to 1967. In fact, my idea about the civil war, that's the Biafran Nigeria civil war, was based on where to take the blame to. Based on the consequences, the sad consequences of war and what it could result to, so that people will not be praying for secession, agitating for marginalization, just trying to cause problems that can lead us on the road to Kigali. I try to be as balanced as possible in dealing with that issue. Then, if under political prejudice, I mentioned the xenophobic attack. Now, while discussing xenophobia, I took my readers back to the apartheid time, where Africans tried as much as possible, especially in Nigeria, to support their South African brothers in the solidarity. But the sad consequence now is that we're having xenophobic attack where Africans are being lynched in the street of Soweto.
All these things are quite significant, because it's also something that bothers a lot of people when you take a step back, you look at the continent. This is a continent that is struggling to develop, struggling to catch up with the first world, and then also still struggling with issues of the past and some of these primordial sentiments that people have. But you also talked about biological prejudices and also gender prejudices as well. I'm not sure we can go into those details. So I want us to dwell around this Nigeria issue for a little bit. When you look at, of course, the nation and what's going on right now, you talk about tolerance as one of the things, one of the major things that can, you know, ensure that peace is fostered and prejudices become a thing of the past. But when you look at the way the country is and people agitating for all sorts of things, what do you think would be the best solution for Nigeria, for instance?
First of all, I'm a humanist. Before talking about nationalistic approach, ethnicity, you think of yourself as a human. We buy from the same market. We suffer the same sad consequences. We fall sick together. We go to the same hospital. So why can't we look at ourselves like that? Why is the difference? I don't want to go into creation. Maybe we are created the same God. As I've been saying, it's not like a cliche. Yeah. But look at me, look at you. Why can't we tolerate each other? Why can't we shit our swords? Why must we go on the road to Kigali, as it were, repeatedly? Wow. I believe tolerance should be the watchword.
Because one of the things that, when we look at a couple of other things that you said here, that tolerance is the watchword for individuals, families, towns, states, nations, and all to at least live in peace and harmony. That word tolerance must hold sway in their dictionary of life. That's like, taking people back to be more introspective, because it seems like some of these things happen, and you mentioned repeatedly that some of these things are snowball effects. Yeah. So they happen with little things, like maybe a herdsman clash here, somebody killing his neighbor over here, but there are little things that then have this snowball effect. Good. And suddenly you don't remember why you're fighting, but 1 million people have died.
Of course, just like the First World War started with a gunshot. The Rwanda issue started with a plane crash. So it starts somewhere, and it begins to have a ripple effect. So it's like something that is insidious. It's a vicious cycle. Yeah. It starts from somewhere, you don't know where it will end to. That's why we need to be careful what we say, how we treat others, so that we won't get into that position that we start blaming ourselves. Where did this all start?
So what do you think, people listening to us now, and where we are, where it almost feels like people are tensed, people are also a bit suspicious of one another, because this man is Igbo, I'm not sure about him, or this person is Yoruba, this person is from the north. What's the direction that you think the nation should be moving towards? Apart from the fact that you're preaching tolerance in the book, what's the direction? Whether politically or even by way of policy, is there something that you're proposing that we should begin to do or think about, even in this book?
I think we should begin to think positive. We should look at it this way. I'm an Igbo man here, you are a Yoruba man here. When we go out there, let's say to South Africa, we could be lynched. If we leave that place to Europe, we are called blacks. So it doesn't make it wise for us to start from our homes to start having issues. Why there are bigger issues out there? It could be racial issue, it could be xenophobic attack. So I think we should start thinking humanist, positive. Why? Probably praying to God to bring peace to humankind.
Wow. Thank you so much. This book is a must-read for those observing what's going on in Nigeria and looking for solutions for some of the things. It's called On the Road to Kigali by Nwagbara Goodies. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, sir. And hopefully people are going to learn some important lessons after reading this book.
Exactly.
All right.